the real estate business is the dollar business. Everybody wants to be in the dollar business. Sell $1 million home and get $25,000, and it takes you 3 weeks. And then the property management's the nickel business. Nobody wants to be in the nickel business, but we turn nickels into dollars. That's what we're trying to do as an industry. Well, association management's the penny business. And everybody wants to walk around the pennies to get to the nickels, to get to the dollars. But the difference is, for many years, residential management, even though it was the nickel business, the margins were like pennies. Well, even though association management's the penny business, the margins are like dollars. The margins is better.
I don't throw darts at a board. I bet on sure things. Read Sun Tzu, The Art of War. Every battle is won before it's ever fought. Think about it.
Welcome to another episode of the Profitable Property Management Podcast. Today I have Scott Brady on the show. Scott, how you doing?
I'm lost in your dreamy eyes, Jordan. Right now, that's all I can say.
It's great having you on, man. How you been?
Good. Well, it was an interesting year in the Brady family. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me more. What does that mean?
Well, we'll segue into how you impacted it, but I was diagnosed with throat cancer, if you didn't know, in January, and had to spend 3 months more or less on my back with 36 radiation treatments and 3 chemo treatments. And good news is it's a very treatable disease, and so I had my PET scan about 3 weeks ago, and it's clear. But because of a conference I went to that you conducted, I guess 2.5 years ago, I had made a pivot. So I was working on the business, not in it, for the last 1.5 years. So when I got back from my sickness, business had gone up 40%, added doors, association, staff. And it was really because of that conference and going to that one meeting that really started me on that path that took me to where I am today.
Wow, that's incredible, man. That is a lot. I'm sure there's a lot of takeaways, and we can get into that
Sure.
that more. But one of the things that's related to that segue is that I assume you must have had to have had some more free time, because you wrote a book since the last time that we talked. Tell me about the book.
Well, that's a book I wrote probably right before that, and that I do sell or give to people in our industry. But it was in my imagination, like, I'll have these 3 months, I'll be so productive while I'm going through chemotherapy and radiation. And what you find is, you're a little...
What an entrepreneurial delusion.
Yeah.
I get to be productive during chemo.
You're a little irritable when you're going through that, and when you're on liquid morphine. So I kind of sketched it out and had in my mind what I was going to do. But pretty much after I got through the treatments, then I started working on the ABCs of HOAs, because I do association management, and I finished that. The book just shipped last week. So, but it was in my head percolating while I was in the bed at 7:00 at night.
Scott, you're an interesting character. What I've observed about you is that as you've grown the business, you've continued to ideate. And this idea of being an ideas guy is a really fragile thing. Oftentimes, being an ideas guy is another way of saying I'm not particularly good at anything, or I'm lazy, or I'm evasive with like actual functional responsibility. I experience you as a functional ideas guy that is actually taking the ideas and doing things. Where does that kind of creative, compulsive gene come from for you?
I like the word compulsive. Well, it's more nature than nurture, right? So I'm an idea guy, but I've always loved the Goethe quote that there's boldness and genius in action. And if you just have ideas, that's not it's fabulous, but it doesn't make you any money. So the key is to then implement. A good example is kind of dovetailing so part of this radiation is I lost taste. I still can't taste anything. And that's not good. I like taste. I like tasting wine, and I don't do that anymore. But I said, well, let's, one of the side effects of not tasting is you lose weight. So I lost like 50 pounds. Now I have to almost struggle to keep weight on. And I went, well, wait a minute. But why don't we create a product that you spray in your mouth and you lose taste? And therefore, the value of food goes away, and it helps you with weight loss. So that's an idea of taking an idea, and then I hired a chemist in Brazil who made the formula, and we produced it in Mexico, and we're going to test it. Now, it could be horrible, and it kills people, and that would be bad, or it's going to be something that helps people in their weight loss journey, right? So it's an idea that turns into a product that may or may not work. Take a risk. And that's pretty much true with a lot of businesses I have, that it's something that I get easily bored in the same business all the time. I think you share this same compunction. And so once that business is running and I've got good people running it, let's try another business. And it may or may not work. I've had ones that have failed and some that have worked really well.
That's part of the game. Do you have some of this food spray on you? Or are you going
I
to
don't. It
pull
was
out a
supposed to.
vial?
It's shipping to me right
You're
now.
going to turn this into a QVC
Yeah.
ad?
And the best part about the product is the tagline. It's no taste, less waste.
Nice.
See, double
Nice.
entendre on waste. I was going to bring it here because the PM Health people, we were supposed to be
Yeah.
jogging this morning.
Yeah.
They said, "Hey, we'll be your guinea pigs." So I was hoping to have it here because we got to test it, but maybe next time.
That is wild.
Yeah.
Well, I do want to back up and kind of trace back your journey. So I've watched you since you got into the industry, kind of scale things, try a bunch of things, and it's gone well for you. But where exactly did you come from? Was it the real estate brokerage side?
Yeah, I think I have pretty much the standard origin story, if you will, right? So I was a top realtor in the late 90s, early 2000, had a brokerage, had 70 agents, selling 60, 70 homes a year, building property in Southern California. And then that little thing called the recession hit. And I will say my nose was in the ground. I didn't see it coming and I wasn't prepared for it. Got through it, lost almost all those agents, lost most of my business. And it was about 2012. I said, okay, there's going to be another recession. We never know when it's going to be, but it would be tragic if I wasn't prepared for this one. I wasn't ready for the 90s, wasn't ready for '08. So I started property management really as a defense mechanism to have a stable income. The same reason I think a lot of us do. And I did then it was, doors were falling out of the sky, right? Everybody was turning their homes into rentals, buying other property. So I grew fairly consistently. And the big change I think my career took a little change was I still had these little agents around me that had also, gone through the recession who also wanted stable income. And LA is such a big market. We're getting leads now in places an hour away. Well, that's where my agents lived. And so I said, well, if I can do property management, they can do property management. So what we did was create a virtual property management company. So, we go from 300 doors and whatever that was, we now manage about 1,200 residential doors throughout Southern California with 30 branch managers. And they work from home and we sell them the doors to manage. So we're the marketing group. We're the ones that convert leads to doors and they manage those doors. And that was probably where I deviate from most property management companies. And then we have a real estate company, residential, escrow company, which is we do in Southern California. And then the last big pivot was association management. I said, well, if we can do residential management, we should be able to do association management.
How much harder can it be?
Yeah. And of course, everybody told me it's really hard. You really shouldn't do it. And I said, well, sometimes when the house is on fire, you run in, you don't run out. And I decided to run into that fire. And it took us a couple of years to figure it out, but faster than residential. And now we add about 2 to 3 associations a month. And they're managed by our branch managers who are also our residential property managers. And same thing, we're really a virtual association management company as well.
Now, that's interesting that you have your residential folks handling the HOA
Correct.
side. Before we get into that, in terms of this branch manager model and that whole paradigm, when you were walking through that process, this is not that dissimilar to traditional portfolio property management, right? What is there any distinction in any way? Is this materially different than traditional portfolio management?
No, it's exactly what it is. So they are the boots on the ground. They do leasing, tenant issues, owner issues, renewals, inspections. So, and really how it works, and not to be dismissive of realtors, but there are a lot of good people who are really bad realtors, but like the lifestyle. They like 1099. They like setting their own hours. They
Autonomy.
don't want to go to a cubicle. And we found that their time, I wouldn't call it cheap, but they're willing to sell their time for less, if you will. So if they're managing 40 properties, that's maybe taking 40 hours a month, but they're making $3,000 a month, and they love that. They love keeping that lifestyle. They'll have 3 or 4 side hustles sometimes. Yes, it's really like a portfolio model, and then where we are, I still manage about 300 properties in the OG. And on that one, I have a typical property management company. We have VAs and a property manager and kind of a departmental.
So it's interesting. So they get some downside protection while still being able to pursue their upside on the transactional side of things. That makes sense. I can see
Correct.
the attraction. On the difference and the distinction between traditional portfolio, the fact that you're handling acquisition, you're not expecting them to grow their portfolio.
Correct.
That's different. That's
Yeah.
recognizing
That's that department. The marketing department generates the doors for them to manage.
the
Correct.
least likely function that they're likely to actually lean into.
They will not spend $1 of their own money to get a new door because they don't trust the process.
They're not going to risk it.
Correct.
They're not going to develop that skill set. They're not going to get over that hump and create that kind of flywheel.
Correct.
So you're not only willing to do it, but you're funding it via this arrangement of where they're buying doors from you.
Correct. And the goal, we're never quite there, is to be sort of a net cost on the marketing. So if I just drop 10,000 pieces out of state, cost me say $5,000. So if I can generate 20 doors and charge them each for those doors, say $500, well, I recoup the cost of the marketing plus the business development manager, right? So the idea is, well, I could drop 10,000, 20,000 pieces, 40,000 pieces. The market's turning now in California. That wasn't as productive the last couple of years because of the market we're in. But, it's our time to shine here the next few years, as California is becoming a California renter state where it's impossible to self-manage, but you want to keep the asset because you like the asset, you like the tax benefits. We're going to have a real estate recession. It won't be grim. Prices will go down 5 or 10%. Sales will go down 10 to 20%. But sellers will say, I'm not going to sell my home at a discount. I'll keep it as a rental. So we have a lot of trends in our favor in California that I think it will be back to where we were in 2010, 2012, where the phones were ringing quite regularly for property management services. And since that time, we just created a better business model. Our pricing's better, programs, fees, our revenue per door is much higher. So every door we take on is now a profitable door.
One of the things that you got early on was offers. That's something I observed with you, is you understood the totality of an offer independent of what I do. In many cases, offers are designed by operators who are engineering minded, and the constraints of the offer is defined by how convenient it's going to be on me operationally, as opposed to optimizing purely for what is going to be the most effective offer. In your experience, you've talked in the past, I guess you coined the term SMEPOs, if I'm not mistaken.
SMIPOs, yeah, self-managing investment property owners, yeah.
Where have you landed over time in terms of the offers and the tonality that's really landed with your consumer?
Sure, and I've worked with other people in our industry on this. We've worked at a kind of a little cabal on, fees and programs, right? So what I learned was the self-managing person, they care about the management fee, kind of ignore everything else. They ignore what you're charging the tenant. They ignore the programs you're charging them, the fees you're charging them, for other services rendered. So I made a hard pivot with the self-managing investment property owners to make almost the pricing a loss leader. It's not, but it looks like a loss leader. To get them in the door. Because all my studies, because I do send out surveys to the investment community, is that 70% care about price. That's the most important factor. And rather than fighting them on price, I said, well, I'll give you price, but I'm taking all this other stuff. And it works well in my business model because the branch manager only gets a piece of the base management fee and the leasing fee, but they don't get all the other stuff. And still for me, residential management, it's not a loss leader. Our margins run about 15%. But it opens up the other margins. Association management is 30%, escrow is 40%, real estate's 50%. So it works well for really all parties. Owner's happy, branch manager's happy, and of course we're happy. So the offer is, to me, of course, performance guarantees. That's part of it. Transparency on the pricing was important to me. We struggled in our market early on because our rents range from $5,000 to $1,000. So you can't do a flat fee. That doesn't quite work. Mm-hmm. And you can't do a percent because the guy on the high end says, I'm not paying you X percent to manage my property. So I think I'm still the only one in the country doing a hybrid model. We said, well, let's charge you a flat fee plus a percent. So it looks like you're the lowest flat fee in the market, but you're the lowest percent in the market. And once we kind of explain that to the consumer through our marketing and how we do it, it resonated. I know a lot of companies, I'm hearing through the grapevines, people lost a lot of doors the last couple of years. Lost 10, 20, 30% of their doors. Mm-hmm. Well, even through this market, we were able to gain doors and keep on adding doors.
That's beautiful. So as you thought about transitioning to some of these ancillary business units, what was the order? Was it first jumping into escrow and then into HOA?
We did it at the same time, to be honest with you. So the escrow in Southern California, if people know what escrow is, we don't have attorneys. We have title companies. They just do the title, but escrow is the neutral third party. And we're one of the few places in the entire country. So when we do an escrow, it's really good margins on that. So we started that beginning of this year. HOA started 2 years ago. It's a kind of funny story. So I started it, and I had a really great branch manager. She's really good at what she does. I said, "You're gonna be my gal." So she took on our first two associations, and we're still trying to figure out the back office and how to do this. And we're flailing about on operations, and she came to me after 6 months and said, "Yeah, I hate this. I don't want to do this." I go, "Well, but you said you want to do it." She goes, "Yeah, it's terrible." So I thought, oh my God, this is not going to work for me because I'm not going to do a traditional association management company. That was not in the cards. And so I said, okay, I gave those associations to a couple other agents I liked. And sure enough, they loved them. after 6 months. So I went, okay, it was a person, not the process. She just didn't like this, but these other two really do like it. And what we found was, after talking to these agents with our first 3 or 4 associations, is that residential property management is kind of hard because you got to make decisions. If you're a property manager, you got to decide who the tenant is. How much do I take out a security deposit? How much should I charge them for rent? Should I evict them? What vendor to use? Did they do the, it's all these, you got to do an inspection. What should I look for? With association, and you really don't have a relationship with the tenant or the owner. You kind of do with the owner a little bit. Tenant doesn't like you at all. And with association manager, we found they actually like the board. They create a relationship with the board that's personal. And 2 is, what we found is they don't have to make decisions. The board makes the decisions. You just implement. Look, I don't want to raise your dues, but those guys told me to raise your dues $30. Why? I don't want to fine you, but that's right here in the rules and regulations. So it almost frees them up. It's cathartic because they're just Switzerland now. They're just implementing. They're not making decisions, and you get in a really antagonistic relationship with your tenants because you're making tough decisions, which you should on behalf of the owner.
Now, one of the things that you hear is this big, great divide between the single family and HOA. It is not uncommon for there to not be a commingling of labor. You're obviously in a different paradigm,
Yeah.
but I'm thinking about training. You're training agents to not only do PM. I mean, we know that the reputation that a lot of our industry relates to realtors kind of coming in and doing a couple of properties. Not
Sure.
only are you doing that, but you're also training them to manage on the HOA side.
Correct.
What does your training and your oversight look like?
So it's always one of the hardest checks you have to write is I had a top guy in the association management side to be my manager of association managers, to be my trainer, to be my sales guy, to be kind of the face of the company, because they pay people more on that side of the business. And we made sure that on the back office, though, they are specifically work on only HOA, accounts payable, accounts receivable, escrow. So they are separate, and it's a separate, it's a separate company name too. So that's Progressive Association Management, not Progressive Property Management. Now the branch managers, they literally have 3 cards. I've got a real estate card, property management card, association management card. So they do wear the 3 hats. And then they get training on residential from a separate person who trains them on residential, keep them in compliance, sell them the door, help them with that, give them a lot of laws, help them with the legalities of that door. So they're hearing information from 2 sets of people. And on real estate, I have a broker of record. And if they have a deal and they've got a deal smith, then she works with them and works them through that process. It's not confusing. They know whom to speak to about whatever their issue might be.
So keep talking to me about HOA. What are some of the other benefits, some of the other traction? If somebody's on the fence, looking at it and thinking there's some money there, but it feels like a lot of pain, what's the totality of the upside that you saw to make the juice worth the squeeze?
I could tell you 100 stories. So the first one, I knew that it was a good business to be in. For our first HOA, we got it from the largest association management company in the country. It's called First Service. I managed thousands of HOAs through many states. And when I called them, give them the bad news that, you've been fired and we've been hired, she goes, no problem. Let me send you to our offloading department. I go, what's an offloading department? She goes, well, that's a place that we get rid of all our HOAs because we constantly lose HOAs. I went, you have an offloading department. I've never heard of a residential property management company with an offloading department. Yeah. So I went, well, there's something wrong here where the biggest company's losing. And then there's a few other stats. Appfolio did a survey because they're trying to get in the HOA space. And 40% of all associations don't like their management company. 40%. My research on residential is 5%. 5% of owners are not currently happy with their management company. So there's a huge pain point there. And really the biggest issue is, once again, this is California, and there's 2 more. California is that the big boys, there's 10 big boys. I can name them right now. And they really want associations that are more than 150 owners, right? That's what they want. And then the mom and pops are just really too small. So there's a Goldilocks here of 50 to 150 doors in my marketplace where they're too big for the mom and pops, but too small for the big boys. And they feel left out. They're a training ground for community managers. And the typical community manager in the association, and the typical community manager manages 10 to 20 communities, 1,000 to 2,000 owners, W-2 employee, sits in a cubicle. But, if you think of that, they're being paid 25% of the base management fee. So they got to manage at least, 2,000 owners to make a living in Southern California. And they're never in the office because if you're managing 20 associations, that's 20 on-site walks a month. That's 20 meetings a month. You got to get compensated with hours from the company. So, okay. So they, I tell these communities, don't blame the community manager. They're innocent. Blame their company that set them up for failure to not give you the service you expect. And then the pricing was the last piece. Was interesting. So pricing, I remember the first time I was trying to price, I go, how do you price this? How do you price a 82 owner association with $300 in dues? Well, the big boys have a book they go to. They go, oh, built in 72, 82 owners. This is what we charge because we have historical knowledge of how many hours it's going to take to manage this. Well, I didn't have that historical knowledge. So I said, well, it's kind of ridiculous that there's this kind of Ouija board mentality on pricing. So I created a matrix that came from my hybrid pricing. And I said, here you go. Our pricing is totally transparent. It's based on the number of owners, goes down, with the more owners because there's economies of scale, and a percent of your dues. And it turned out it works really well. It really appeals to that 50 to 150. And, just like any other business, what's your target market? So it's the association with 100 owners paying $300 a month. And we're going to charge them about $1,500 a month in monthly management fee. But you make your money, if you didn't know, on escrows. We charge about $1,000 in escrow for demand, transfer, documentation. Costs us nothing, by the way. And then the other big one, which was, I'll give this to Allison DeSaro. When I got my first association, I called Allison. I said, hey, I got this association. I got like $1 million in the bank. What do I do? She goes, well, it's just like residential. You put it in the bank and we give you some bank credit. That was the aha moment. I'm like, you give me some money to sit on this money? And fast forward, we sit on $10 million now. And, think of whatever your bank credit is, it starts becoming quite big
Pretty
money.
meaningful.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll tell you that was my aha moment, I think I've told you this, is that you go to the typical residential property management company and look at their building. It's a hovel. It is embarrassing. It's like just, put together with, tape and glue. And you go to the typical association management building, and it's an edifice.
All glass.
Oh, glass. They're all washing the employees' cars. Like, well, there's a disconnect here. And a lot of people in this industry said, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. It's poops, parties, and parking. It's, terrible calls. Well, that's your opportunity then. If it's that bad, let's bring in somebody who does it better. And we do it better. They don't even use VAs in association management. They were shocked when I talked about using virtual assistants or remote workers to take a lot of these calls. So I just think in our industry, we got the overhead covered. You got the G&A, you got the copiers. Yeah, is it scary? Yeah, of course it is. It's new, and you got to learn it. But so what? That's the opportunity.
Bryn here from Lead Simple. I love Lead Simple, but that feels like a given. Instead of telling you why I love it, here's Sarah Hatch from Hatch Property Management.
We're very happy, and I recommend so many people to Lead Simple because I'm like, oh my gosh, it changed our world. It's totally changed our whole way of managing properties and staying in contact. It's the best business investment I've ever made.
To learn more and connect with one of my teammates, go to leadsimple.com/podcast today.
Now, educate me on the unit economics on the HOA side. We're all familiar
Sure.
with concepts like, on average revenue per unit, $164 a month,
Yeah.
profit per unit, $25.
Correct. Yeah.
What does the unit economics looks like for a
Sure, and
a
it
door over there?
sounds terrible when you say it, right? So, so bottom line is we go our average revenue per door on association for just base management fee is about $23, 23 and change. But then you make money on the bank credit, you make money in the escrow, you make money on liens, you make money on reimbursables, yada yada yada, and other fees we charge. And everything's a fee. Everything you do in associate, you get reimbursed. You get a profit margin. We send out a piece of paper, we charge them for the paper plus the labor, so it's a profit center. So that turns out to be $35 per owner per month.
All in.
All in. You're like, well, that's 100 versus 164. That's terrible. Well, the difference is that's 100 units though. Okay, so that's $3,500 a month for one association, and the profit margins for us is running about 30% on that number. So I always say the real estate business is the dollar business. Everybody wants to be in the dollar business. Sell $1 million home and get $25,000, and it takes you 3 weeks. And then the property management's the nickel business. Nobody wants to be in the nickel business, but we turn nickels into dollars. That's what we're trying to do as an industry. Well, association management's the penny business. And everybody wants to walk around the pennies to get to the nickels to get to the dollars. But the difference is, for many years, residential management, even though it was the nickel business, the margins were like pennies. Well, even though association management's the penny business, the margins are like dollars. The margins is better. So and the other big difference and I've got numbers around this, the acquisition cost for residential is much higher. So the numbers better than I do. $350 to $500 typical acquisition cost for a door. And it's well worth it because the value of a door is much higher than that. Association management, my acquisition cost is $10 a door.
Hmm.
$10. And by the way, they pay me for that because I charge them a setup fee of $5 an owner. So in a sense, it nets out to $5 a door. So and that's for so if I get 100 doors, it only costs me $500. So it's the acquisition cost is so much lower, it makes it more appealing. Plus, I think to get to I'm now at about 2,300 doors in association management, and that's all been about a year and a half. So you can get to 3,000 doors in association management in a couple of years. It's really hard to get to 1,000 doors in residential in a few years.
Now, how can the customer acquisition cost be so different? Are you pursuing a different channel strategy?
Channel strategy. So, when we get acquisition, so I can't compete with Google, with First Service, with Associa, with Keystone. I can't compete with them. They probably have 30 people in China knocking out code every day, right? So I have to go kind of guerrilla marketing on association management. So our best one is other management companies. You don't do it, I do. And I'll give you a referral fee. All property management, which never worked for me in residential, was just a race to the bottom in residential. Well, there is no race to the bottom in association management. There really is no, everybody's kind of charging close to the same thing and they're looking for better service. And really, the board doesn't really care that much what your charges to be close because it's not their money.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 100 people who's paying for it. So they're looking for service. They're looking for somebody who cares about their community. So that's their driver. And then lastly, the last thing I did is I built a direct mail that nobody has. So I was able to, because we have the multiple listing service and I use Secretary of State, I built a database now, every day we build it, of the president, his home address, his association, and then we direct mail them. And we say we go directly to their and say, you know what, there's better out there. Mail them that little book I wrote. And so it's a little guerrilla marketing because you can't go toe to toe with the big boys on Google. This is not, you can't do it.
So rounding this conversation out on the HOA side, what about the vibe, the milieu, the ethos? Have you been to conferences? Do you know operators? Do you have a sense of how operators on that side of the industry think?
It is almost the polar opposite of this meeting we're having, here, this convention. So I went to CAI, which is the national forum for associations in Vegas about a month ago, and that conference was put on by First Service. The biggest association management company in the country really put on the entire conference. And the whole point of that conference wasn't to help people become better association management companies. It was purely for acquisitions. It was just banks were all there to fund it. And you had 3 or 4 big companies saying, what do you want for your company? Just give me a number. Write down a piece of paper. We'll make it happen. And that was the entire conference. Other than these people, the management companies getting hammered on free booze, it was the least productive 2 days of my life.
Wow.
Yeah. It was zero networking and improvement of your business. Most of the meetings were about how to pay your community managers less. How to find more community managers, because the burnout rate on community managers, the average tenure at a company is 5 years. They burn out that quickly. They just move up, get burned out after managing all these people and getting yelled at all day long. So the ethos is the opposite of where we are here, where I'm speaking in front of people tomorrow on how to work on your business, not in it. Tell them my journey with Deb Newell and say, I've done it, or I'm on my path of doing it, and I want to get you there. You're not getting that in association management. It's everybody in their silo. True story, when I picked up a couple of associations because there was a really bad management company in our area, and I got a call, and they say, hey, the president of this company is on the phone. He wants to talk to you. I'm like, well, he's going to call me to congratulate me and tell me how happy he is I'm in the industry. And he called and threatened me with a lawsuit, and he's going to sue me. And I said, but what grounds? He goes, I don't care what the grounds are. I'll just sue you. And I went, well, go ahead. That's how nasty it is in that industry. It's like everybody in the back room counting their money and not sharing the information. And I said, yeah, I'm okay with sharing the information. I think it's an opportunity for residential. We can do it better, bottom line. And it's such a great profit. You only do it because it's profitable. You don't do it for shits and giggles.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that certainly is a different vibe. So what's the logical progression here? You mentioned, of all the things you mentioned, short-term didn't come up. Is short-term on your radar?
No, it's really not. I think that's a heavy lift for our business model, because I'm not going to trust a branch manager to do short-term rentals. I think you really have to have a top in-house group to do it. Plus, in California, they're killing short-term rentals up and down the coast. They don't want them. Cities don't want them. So there's a big backlash against them. I think for me, it's pushing out. It's San Diego. It's Ventura. It's Coachella. I'd love to do this business model in Indiana, or have other management companies adopt it. There's going to be there are going to be a lot of realtors falling out of the real estate tree in the next few years, but want to stay in the business, want the lifestyle, want the 1099 income, and we can be there for them if we choose to. Or we just let them, fall to the ground and keep on going. But we're in a position as an industry, particularly residential. It's our time to shine. We've been, we've had a rough go of it the last 4 or 5 years, between laws and the real estate market. Well, all things change, and I think you should. What are you doing today? But Jeff Bezos has a great line that people will congratulate Amazon for a great quarter. He goes, no, that's something we did 3 years ago. So what am I doing today to anticipate what's happening 3 years from now? And for us, it's just keep on growing our branch managers, association management, residential. My next big passion, I think there's an opportunity to do syndications, fix and flips, all that kind of stuff when that market comes back.
So as you reflect back over the last 4 or 5 years, what sticks out to you in terms of how the industry has matured and grown in that kind of the arc of the time that you've been in the industry?
It's almost been spectacular. I have a list of all the changes in our industry the last 20 years, and it's mind blowing. All the things that have gone on. I think you're seeing a race toward delegation, automation. I think you're gonna, I think we're getting more efficient. Our margins, if a well-run company has gone from 5% to 20%, our revenue per door has gone from 150. Some people hitting 250. The industry has embraced, charging fees for work done, for offering programs that solve pain points. There's been I think the good are getting better, and if you're not incrementally improving your company, the aggregation of small gains, making tiny improvements every day in your company, embracing change, implementing it, you could be left behind. It's going to be an industry of really big VC back. They don't bother me, but then big local companies. The big companies that are managing 2,000, 3,000 doors, residential doors, managing 5,000, 10,000 association doors with revenue streams that they can put back into marketing. I never offered health. I never offered a retirement plan because my margins are too thin. We offer both now. And you've got to compete with that. If you're a property management company, you have to compete with the fact that not only do I have I'm paying them a proper wage, but I'm taking care of my employees and they have a great work environment. I think as a company, you have to have a compelling vision. And as you would say, most don't. I do a mastermind with a group of 10 good operators, and not one had a vision statement. They had a mission statement. We provide great customer service through our, but what's compelling your employees, getting them excited about the future. Ours is that we liberate realtors from income instability. That's what we know we do as every employee there, and then we manage happiness. We're there to take care of our communities and take care of our owners. So as an industry, I think we've gotten better. I think there's a risk now that have we peaked? What's left out there? How many VA companies can you see at a conference, right? So I don't know what's around I don't know if there's another a rabbit in our hat as an industry. I think right now it's about implementing all the stuff out there. I think for the most part, a lot of operators are not doing that.
What's your take on all the roll-up taking place in our industry right now?
Yeah, I get a call every other day, right? Or an email from a company. It's not bad for our industry. In the end, here's the difference between probably association residential. I've never had an owner call us to say, I'm looking for the biggest property management company. Is that you? How many doors? I'm looking for at least 3,000 doors under management. I'm not going to. They want best. They want better. So I don't think the VCs should worry anybody about their service standards. What you should be concerned about is price matters. And if a VC or a roll-up can offer a compelling price as a loss leader to everything else, well, that is a little dangerous. Or if their marketing is such that they can do radio or TV, really aggressively. I'm not worried because as we go back to SMIPO, 70% of people self-manage. In my market area, that's 1 million people self-managing. If only 20% said, look, I can't do this. It's just, I've got a lot of equity. I've got a good margin now. I was running it for 2,000, running for 3,000. I could afford a property management company for $150. That'd be 200,000 doors needing property management. Not enough management companies out there to absorb all those doors. So it's for me, all that's kind of on the periphery. If I get the call, I'm not interested. I'm never selling my company. It keeps me connected to people, to my staff. I go in there now. My job is, I think, resource allocation, make sure they have the resources, make sure they have the proper staffing, general direction of the companies, and hiring. But to write me a check right now, I'm not interested. But there's others who are, and if they should entertain it. It's going to be a competitive zone out there. Yeah, it's going to be tough to be just like in association management. The middle players are being gobbled up, and the small ones don't have the resources to provide the service that people expect.
So your passion for what you do is palpable. I can see it. I can feel it now. I've always felt it in my conversations with you. Circling back to the beginning of our interview, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your journey and your reflection. What changed for you in terms of perspective in going through that cancer journey, that experience?
When it hit, I've always been really healthy, and it was what really hit me was that you've got to have your whys to get to get through the how. Right, the how was grim, but I would focus on particularly my tribes. I'm a big believer in your tribes. So your family's a tribe, and coincidentally, my daughter had her first grandchild right when I got sick, right in February. He's 8 months old now. And your whys are your family, your grandkids, taking care of them. My son's in my business. He's going to take over the business one day. I sell him a little piece of it every year. My daughter works for me in the business. My wife will work for me in the business after she retires. So the whys are, and then, but my other tribe is my real estate community. I'm on the board of Pacific West Board of Realtors. I'm on that board. I'm a California Association Realtors director. I care about real estate. I care about the direction. I care about property management. So I'm here. I'm a vendor here. So we are promoting tenant boost here, and we're trying to make that work where let's monetize tenants, not just the ones we have, but the ones who are inquired about our property. I'm passionate about association management now. I think that we have a better business model. I've never done anything for money. I mean, it's important you make money. I've always done something to just build a better mousetrap. And if you build a better mousetrap, the world beats a path to your door. We were talking about Franklin Barbecue. You do good barbecue, you got to line out the door, and you sell out at 1 o'clock. You do bad barbecue, you're out of business very quickly. And I think our business is the same. You got to get up every morning and say, how can I build a better business? What can I do to improve whatever facet it is? And that just absolutely gets me excited, and the opportunities out there. We are the nexus. Residential property management is the nexus of owners, tenants, associations, realtors, vendors. And we need to monetize all those different facets, investors, of course, and that's why we're in a special, I think a special, and that's what gets me excited. That I get easily bored on one thing, as you might tell. So it's fun to be able to dabble in different areas, and once we strike gold, hire somebody to remove as much gold as possible from that mine.
I get it. Makes sense. So teasing that out a bit more as I think about what it's been like for me as an entrepreneur to go from survival early on, which at the time it feels hard. It feels like a tough thing.
Been there, yeah.
And at the same time, part of my reflection is that I look back fondly on those days of survival because it was really clean, and my why was very clean and pure.
Yeah,
I didn't need huge aspirations.
No.
I didn't need to be motivated.
Now, when you're in a foxhole and those bullets flying over, you're pretty focused. Yeah,
quite sufficiently motivated at that time. Now you get bigger and eventually you reach more of your financial goals. And now you do have to be more honest. And as I reflect in my conversation with my wife, it's harder for me to say, oh, I got to go, honey. I got to be on the road. I don't really have to.
Yeah.
I could not, and everything would be okay, which is an opportunity for me to take more ownership of my own choices.
Correct.
I want to. I'm getting to do this, and
Correct.
I'm getting something out of it more than financially. Part of that is the whole question around the deferral of pleasure, of life experiences, that I'm going to do all this, so eventually I'll get that.
Correct.
When you were facing in the middle of this cancer battle, did that shift or change at all this relationship, this idea of kind of deferred pleasure at something into the future when that future was threatened?
Yeah, you totally nailed that. I happened to read a book. It's the Psychology of Money. It's a great book, by the way. And the one point of the book was the ultimate return on investment is doing what you want, when you want, for how long you want to do it. That's freedom. More and more, and I've earned it at this point. I do what I want, when I want, for as long as I want to do it. So I'll go in the office, maybe get there at 9 or 10, maybe leave at 2 or 3. Maybe read a book when I get home. I have ultimate control over my time, and I believe my time is valuable now. So I will not do anything I don't want to do anymore. And if it's not pleasurable, I don't do it. I don't go to it. Period. End of story. I'll do funerals and weddings. That's pretty much it. And so that's who I am. And look for the next challenge. What the thing is, I don't know what the next challenge is. It'll pop up today, tomorrow. And embrace it and run with it. Yeah. And use what I've got and solve the problem.
So taking that full circle, you reflect on that as where you're at now. And I think everybody would love to be there. in terms of correlation versus causation, do you believe that you taking and adopting that perspective actually puts you in a better position to be able to have that dream and vision?
Yeah, the nice thing about working on the business is that you're looking forward, you're not in the moment. And when you're in that foxhole, it's the moment. And I think of transition from the moment to the future, right? You have to be intentional. Life's about being intentional, not cause you just can't let life happen to you. You've got to take control and analyze the situation and pivot. If I hadn't started property management and got my ass handed to me for the first few years, I was in property management, I think 1 year, and I got audited by the Department of Real Estate, and it didn't go well. I can tell you that. You can look it up. And I'm glad that happened. I told my staff at the time, I'm glad it happened now and not 10 years from now. And sometimes you want to get your ass handed to you early, not later. And that happened. It happened in association, happened in residential, happened in real estate with me as well. And that's a good thing. Sometimes we just lost $30,000. Somebody stole money, and everybody was really distraught at the company. We set on what, 15 million between reserves and security deposits and all the rest. And I said, well, I'm glad it wasn't 300,000. Ironically, I just had my PET scan this morning. It was clear. I said, there's bigger fish to fry. If they needed the money, but let's tighten up our processes, make sure it never happens again. But it wasn't 3 million. It wasn't 300,000. And everyone was distraught. And I said, don't worry. It's going to be okay. This will make us a better company. Failure sometimes, or not failure, but making a mistake will make you a better company, a better person.
Learning lessons that scale. I
Yeah.
couldn't agree more. I've had that same experience where something really painful happened, but I was super clear that knowledge and that experience would scale because of the moral conviction that came from a really hard slap.
Yeah.
A theoretical lesson on a whiteboard, maybe use it, maybe you don't.
Yeah.
When you really get burned on the flesh, that's something you don't forget, and something you can actually bloom into a much bigger win down the line.
Yeah, and the day you stop learning and stop taking risks and stop making mistakes and learn from mistakes, I think you stop growing. I'm 58. Hard to believe. I know. You're looking like, you look exactly 58, maybe 59. And if I haven't learned something by now, then shame on me. I've had a few lessons during my life, and so now it's my turn to manage those around me and help them when they make a mistake. And it's kind of a nice transfer. For years, I built a brand, the Scott Brady brand. It was about me, my brand, sell 80 homes, blah, blah, blah. I'm the best. And it's really pleasing. That's not about me. My name's not on the company. It is something else. And my job now is to lift these people up. We give 35 people a living in real estate. A great living in real estate. They're so happy they have this opportunity.
It's beautiful.
Why not have 100 doing this? Why not give 100 people the opportunity to be liberated from income instability, take care of their children, work from home? And so that's what drives me, is giving this opportunity to more people and more staff members as well.
Well, let's end it here, Scott.
Okay.
I know that you're a big educator, you're a reader, you're an autodidact, which I really respect and appreciate. I heard Kevin Kelly, the guy that came up with the idea of 1,000 True Fans, say that he's never met somebody he really respected that didn't read more books than him.
Yeah.
Now, that's a pretty opinionated statement, but it kind of landed with me.
Yeah.
I want to know from you, what's the last best thing you read that you think everybody listening right now should go grab a copy of?
I think The Psychology of Money was a great book. I've read 1 million books on investing, My Dollar Cost Average, Random Walk Down Wall Street. That book was by far the best book I've read on money and the psychology of money. And it was just accurate, 100% accurate. So that was a great book. I've read so many. I read about a book a week. Yeah, maybe more than that. Yeah. So I just Googled best books of 2021 and there was nothing left. So I'm reading a book. What's another book? I've read so many books recently. I read a book about triggers, and I thought that was interesting. I'll give you the title, that we need a trigger to affect change. And it's hard for people just to affect change without a trigger. And that's how I came up with tasteless weight loss. That's a trigger. I'm going to spray this in my mouth, and I'm going to try to lose weight today, versus waking up going like, I'm just going to eat less, see how that goes. And I think a trigger is something that moves the needle. A trigger could be paying a consultant. A trigger could be implementing a new program. You've got to trigger. You got to do something and take action. And I love this industry. I love residential property management. We have too many people sitting in their foxhole,
Comfy.
hoping they get more doors, praying for better margins.
Hope is not a strategy.
Hope is not a strategy. And it's about, a lot of them here at this convention, they're going to hear a lot of stuff, but in the end, it's taking risks, spending money on marketing, hiring a BDM, replacing yourself, using Lead Simple, implementing. And if you do that, there's some amazing people here making really a lot of money they wouldn't be making otherwise.
Well, I think it would be beautiful and a big act of irony if after writing a couple of books, all this conversation, everything you've learned, that all your riches are made through tasteless weight loss.
Yeah,
So
that would be ironic. I know. Yeah.
Here's to hoping for that.
Yeah.
That has a bright future. I appreciate you coming in and
Great.
sharing what you learned. It's always a pleasure, Scott.
And thank you, Jordan, for starting that change in me about 2 years ago and set me on a different path. And I appreciate you.
Appreciate you back, man.
All right.
Until next time.
All right.